test. All right, that's the spot I'll cut off. All right, let me double check. There's nothing that shouldn't come up on screen. Yep, that's one of those things. Let's not show the stream keys. Okay, it's time to get to work. Oh wait, is there anyone else I want to nag that the stream is running? No. Let's get to it. Okay, so on Monday's thrilling adventure, I crashed my computer without saving the images, so I don't have my checklist that I drew during the stream. But I was able to go look at it, and what I found was, wait, oh yeah, I'm learning all the shortcuts and secrets now. So I had 4 steps basically, and they were, I forget the first 2, but those are done. But next up was, let's see, that would be fill out these classes. And once the new UI classes are filled out, let's test them out. But then that's going to go straight into the next step, which is Python bindings. So my drawing tablet is way behind. Something to add to the stream debugging backlog. I would like to be able to write as fast as I write, but we got what we got for tonight. So this first one, which looks like it's 3 of the same boxes, the first one's actually a big deal. Okay, I don't think we'll be drawing tonight. This is like really taking its time. Okay. This one is probably like 70% of the work. And then this one is like 5%, and then what is left? 25% getting it to work in Python. Hopefully I can do that all tonight, but if not, that's just the size of it. So what have I been up to in a couple of free minutes I had? I started fleshing out the UI drawable classes. So the way this will work is, oh, that's going to pop up every time I tab if I don't unfull screen it. UI drawable is the base class, and every one of these objects is going to be a thing that can be drawn on the screen, whether it's a picture, some text, or a box/clickable button. They'll know their parent so that you can go up the tree for whatever reason. So if there's text on a box, the text can identify the box for reasons it might need to. Then everything's going to draw. And lastly, handle event. If I put this on the base class, then pictures, text, and boxes should all become clickable things. So, that's kind of makes me think maybe I want to actually build the whole clickability into the base class, but since none of it's built right now, it's not super important to pick for sure. Hold on, checking YouTube audio. Seems to be running now, so. Okie doke. Let's cheat. I realize I'm not working for anybody. I can just dump this into ChatGPT and get answers out of it, right? That would be allowed. So, what do we even need to ask ChatGPT to make this? I think I could do a little bit more myself. I have UI menu, and that includes its own render method, which this is going to be based off of. So the thing I didn't like about this is that it has 3 separate loops for the 3 separate things: sprites, captions, and buttons. Now we're going to have one loop. I guess I should define this thing then, right? It'll be void UI. What's going to render? The frame. The base class has a render method, but it's virtual. Everything's going to need to implement it differently. So for UI frame, no args. And what this will actually be is drawable in children. Children in this case is going to be just in UI frame. It's going to have children. It's again, like, I kind of think maybe you should be able to put children on anything, but I don't want to go down rabbit holes and be too general. This is just for just do what it already does, but in a more clean coding way. So for drawable in children, what we need to do is call drawable.render. This thing will also need to draw itself, but because the use case is a box, it needs to draw its own box first and then draw the children on top of it. So for that, let's look how UI menu drew its own box, which is this code right here. No, that's the buttons. Window.drawBox. So the secret here is that the box, the rectangle, was always at screen coordinates where it's supposed to draw. And if we look at the definition of that, where's box? It's a rectangle shape. So in the UI header, UI frame has that same member now. So we could just try for box dot, or I'm going for no arguments to construct this thing. So where UI menu calls for window as an argument, I am going to fetch that from where? And where does it get window usually? If we look in, I think it's going to be Python scene. Where does it call render? It's always calling game get window. So I want to do this internally. Again, it's sacrificing some flexibility. But as far as I know, drawing to two separate game windows at the same time from one single engine is not on my roadmap. So to fix that, I'm going to add to resources and add a game engine. And I think it just needs to, wait. We need to add it to the resources space, which in both cases, if I include common, does that automatically include game engine? No. So let's include, well, I think what I have to do here is forward declare it, and I don't expect anyone else to know that about my code, but if I'm remembering correctly, it becomes circular because game engine includes some other stuff. So a forward declaration would look like this. Because you don't really need any information about the declaration of a class, what members or methods it has to make a pointer to it, which is what we're going to put here, which will be game engine pointer game. The CPP file will allocate memory and kind of just using resources class. I need to put static, don't I? Yep. Because I'm just sort of using this resources class as a global namespace that everything can get to. So when UI stuff needs to render now, I should be able to say resources game get window. Did I remember that right? It was just in Python, wasn't it? Yep, get window. Implementation. And what we'll do with that is stuff like w dots draw my own box, and now UI frame should be able to draw its box to the screen. It doesn't have any methods to modify that box, which would be better, but I'll just leave the rectangle shape class as public, should have no problem uh, modifying the size, outline, color, all that stuff. For a test, I got to figure out how I'm going to expose this complicated shape to Python, which is just like more and more lines of adding attributes, I think. But I may have to actually write a way to expose rectangle shape and then expose the member referencing that Python class wrapper. So I will try to figure it out live ASAP. So this can render. What else needs a render so this thing will compile? And that's everything. So UI caption needs one, and UI sprite needs one. I do worry that this is going to basically be in every single render function, but yeah, I'll worry about it. I'll check if it's a problem before I continue worrying about it. Does that sound about right? And my volume is low. I will turn my volume up. All right, this is -1 dB. No, that is kind of low. I see what you mean. I'll give you just a smidge more gain, but I think this room is kind of echoey. It's a problem with these headphones. I hear too much. But okay, so we're going to... Oh, that reminds me. You know, I post-process all my YouTube videos. I fix the levels in Audacity before I upload it. So that's a struggle for streaming, isn't it? I probably need like a soundboard or something that I can actually figure more of that stuff out, but might be. Additionally, how does caption render? And that's also here. It wasn't its own class before, it was just members here. And a caption is just a text. I thought about doing multiple inheritance last stream on Monday, but multiple inheritance is generally a bad idea. And since I have to put my own render methods and stuff anyway, it doesn't really matter if it's composition or inheritance here. So I'm going to use text as a member. And then I'm going to... What am I going to do? Find on render, how does it do the captions? First we move it. So we move it by the top left amount of that is a good question that I did not ask aloud. The question here is going to be, if the text is moved by the position of the box, we need to get that position from the parent to do it. But during rendering, we're going to have to move everything by that amount. Basically, here's the problem. Is if we have a box, and this is like some XY coordinate, and we have another box, in relative terms, here's the X difference, here's the Y difference. But in terms of screen coordinates, we actually have a screen coordinate of, and this is like XB, YB, XA, and YA. The total is going to be the sum xa plus xb. And likewise for the y coordinates. But the problem is that there's more and more terms the deeper you go. The more children you have, the more things you need to add up. And there's not really don't need to go crazy recursive in both directions. So I don't want to store the children with screen coordinates. They need to draw at screen coordinates. So I think what I need is something to get the right coordinates for these things, because the coordinates of a child should be relative to the parent. And why do I want to do it that way? Because I really want to say that, like, the first text box is going to be at 0, 0. That's at the top of the box. Easy. So yeah, let me make sure my audio is coming through. It's still early. It's not too late for me to repeat everything I just said. Whoops, wrong button. So I was thinking of a thing called axis aligned bounding box, and I don't know if that'll need to be it would be re-implemented because the SFML stuff saves its position in a weird different way. So what this should do is should be able to ask for the AABB, or at least like vector 2i, and or vector int. That's what a vector 2 of int would be. Vector 2i. That's an xy position, and can move stuff by that amount. You can draw stuff at that position. So, let's just take a crack at it. What else needs to be implemented to compile? So to do that, what we would need to do is the same get window, draw my text item, but thinking maybe I should implement these with like default arguments so that it'll render with a given offset, and as it calls it down the tree, that's what I'll do. So by default, what we'll do is like the top level one can get this method called, and it's only the frames that'll need to do it because they're the only ones that have children. But what it'll do, oh no, captions and sprites will need it too. And same thing, what does this do? Okay, I'll do this. So if I make that the default, it should render. Okay, so the implementation will be render with a given offset, which will let me move them progressively as we go recursively down the tree. And this will be drawable.render. The way this guy will work, it will be offset x. And if something is a top level UI box, that box is on the screen, render gives it an offset of 0, 0, which is perfectly correct because its coordinates are screen coordinates. The children need to add that, which let's pull up a first SFML doc of the knights, which will be SF rectangle shape. That's the box. It's my internet's running kind of slow. It's like something's using all my bandwidth or something like that. Okay, so get texture, get size, get position. Does it have some stuff like top left or X or anything like that? The vectors have them, but not the boxes. So let's just go with box.get position .x. Did I do that right? Vector 2f. Call it twice. Let the compiler figure out if that could be optimized away. So that should do that. Okay, so caption has a text. No, I think I need that still. Should I make it not inheritable? It's a little weird. Does SF Sprite have a position? That's what I'm wondering now. Because I'd like to store stuff in the SFML containers if it has it, but oh, look, it comes down from drawable and transformable, so it should have get position. Yep. Okay. So no X and Y, we'll use get position. So yeah, I think we're just about ready to test this out. The difference will be we'll do text.move. You know, maybe I should just pass this as a SF vector 2i offset. At which point I can say offset plus box.getPosition. Looks a lot better. what do I have to do to support that? Well, this is going to be the offset in the other render methods. And what we'll do is for caption and sprites, we will say box.move offset, draw it, box.move opposite of offset. Something kind of fishy about this. Let me just double check that there's not a method on render window to draw at a coordinate offset. So the thing I'm calling is draw. Is window different from render window? I should have guessed that. Nope, I was in the right spot before. Void draw, drawable states, vertices, vertex buffer. It does not have, I have to move it when I draw it. That's simply the drawback of this method. So let's say this strikes me as a little, like I'm a little not happy with having to move things back and forth between their parent position and their screen position. But the reason I have to do this is because, like, say we're animating something, I don't want to have to update every single element recursively all the way down to every single frame. Although it's not really different to do it this way. So I will try it before I declare it's a problem. I think this might compile. New classes aren't used anywhere, so let's sanity check this. Oh, I think I might have some, what's virtual that's missing? They don't have a position. Although I don't use position anywhere, so I declared it for no reason. Let me see if I can sneak it in. UI is pretty low in the alphabet, so. Also, my poor CPU. What's happening? Load 11 full threads. So that's not ideal. I'm gonna need a separate streaming computer. Okay, failed on UI. No UI sprite render. Did I? Let's see, class. UI sprite render. Okay, I think it's because, yep, that. and expected semicolons after classes. That always is a little weird to me, but so how's it going, my three, probably one human viewer? Mostly viewing myself to make sure the stream stays alive. It says compiler says import is deprecated. Oh, thinking in Python. Yeah, and I missed the one up top. So don't overthink it. Try to build it again. Hey, thanks for popping in. I thought I recognized that screen name. Another thrilling adventure in compiler errors. This is why I don't usually do a lot of C++, but that's also why this is a learning exercise and a chance for growth for me. Vector 2i. I didn't just mess up the capitalization, did I? Expects one argument, 2 provided. Oh, I never defined them in the class is what it's telling me. Which I suspected that it was like I should have seen this before, because like if I go to Python scene, this is a derived class, and it also has, yeah, I need to put override final on the on all the functions that override base class, even though it's virtual method on the base class means you have to override it. You still have to declare it as such. So if I look at, where was that? Derived. Python scene is derived from scene. So we have to do overrides on all those render, update, etc. game loop functions. So here we have render, and we have declared them on all the child classes. Is that? Yeah, so all right, well, that's cooking. I'll just pull up the EngJam page. I picked kind of a mouthful of a name. It really does not roll off the tongue. EngJam. So I have put up a couple of interviews in the mentor interview series. I got 7 mentors total, and 1, 2, 3 more feelers out. No responses back yet. I'm trying to space them out a little bit so I don't run out immediately, but I'm going to try to get everything out basically through the weekend and maybe Monday, Tuesday. So a couple more interviews. If you're interested, go have a look at those on the EngJam page. Action Jake did a video interview, and I published on my blog an interview with Jason Roberts, who's the maker of an incredibly complex and unsung video game, Empires of Aradia: Cataclysm of Chaos, which is, it's an ASCII game. It's a roguelike, but I'm really a sucker for those. And just while chatting with this guy, I pulled up his text adventure, and I was like, oh, well, let me just get a feel for it so I can talk about what his career has been like. And then I played it for 2.5 hours, and it's just so cool to meet other people that make stuff and get sucked into it. So I highly recommend it. Take a crack at it. Talk to other people, make your own stuff, and talk about it. Even if it's not good, see my entire stream. It's not good now, but looking back, I'm going to be glad I documented my struggles. What was this? Resources? Okie dokie. What does this say? No known conversion argument for vector to int to const vector to f. Huh. Maybe I should. It won't do it automatically because that loses precision, right? So let's call it vector to f. I'm not a fan of floats. I think a pixel should be an integer, but regardless, we are going to endure that. I wonder if it's going to tell me that as this is it's a rectangle box. Where is it? Rectangle shaped box. Let's just try that. Let's see what it says about that. The errors keep coming, but the code, it's improving. The errors are changing, so something must be getting better. Resource is not declared. Fix that. Sprite was not declared in this scope. Where is that? UI.cpp line 30. Before I added something or changed a line. Sprite.move. This is in UI Sprite. UI Sprite says float scale. Oh, it's called S. So let's name that sprite. It's not being billed by the character here. So this froze. Oh no, I'm just scrolled up. Whoops. We will build again. We will rebuild it. Okay, and this says virtual void UI sprites, invalid use of incomplete type class game engine. in the UI implementation, we should now be able to include GameEngine.h here without causing a circular reference, because all those header files get included all over the place. CPP files are only combined in the linker. So every CPP file is compiled separately. It can use other headers to get all the definitions, but I can include GameEngine here. It's not going to become a circular reference because this is the only place that does it. If I include GameEngine here, I don't remember exactly what the circle was, but once stuff starts including each other partway through, it does not work. Use of deleted function, render window, const sf render window. Note, render window is implicitly deleted because the default definition would be ill-formed. Okay, so what does this mean? No matching call, render int. Yep, that's probably the first thing I should do. It gives a huge list of reasons it can't do that, but all I should have to put here is vector 2f, because the default vector has a position of 0, 0. Spending all my time recompiling because I didn't learn make. Still haven't learned it since the last stream. I mean, basically all I did was go to work 2 days and go to class one night. Kind of like barely got a chance to even look at this code since I was on stream. Yeah, I had to think about it. Okay. This says top error first. Okay. UI frame render. We can't say get window. Wait, how did Python do it? How did the Python scene do it? Game get window. So I think it might be null. During setup, when do I initialize other resources? Resources font load from file. What I should also say is resources game equals this. A lot of these, like, goes into the API, goes into the sprite index class. That's what made me put together a resources class, because if I'm going to make a bunch of exceptions, I should just make one exception to tidy it all up. I don't think that that's really the issue, because it's like not a null pointer thing. It says it's non-copyable. Oh, here's why. I shouldn't save it to a variable. It doesn't like that. The way it's used, it needs to be a reference. So if we go to Python scene, game get window, great. So the second pair would be a grid class, because this mcrfpy API stores the grids under text labels. So if I go to grids render, grid, class grid, render, it's a reference, not a copy, which is just another important thing to, yeah, I'll put, that's why I didn't even think about it, because I didn't even think of what the class was. So auto W, and that's good to do anyway. Okay. I feel good about it. The errors are really whittling down, so might have some new UI structures in a second here. It compiled. We're in. Okay, so it did not link though. So undefined reference to type info. Let me have a look at that build script, because how does it do it? Oh, right. I can't use Vim inside this terminal. It's not sufficiently terminal-like. So let's go to the build scripts, and this tries to compile every file one at a time. It's really not ideal, but final executable links to all the objects. Let me see, what objects did we get? I don't see a UI.o here, so where did it get those? Compiled UI. Undefined reference to type info for type UI drawable. How did I mess this up? Let me have a look at scene. That's my example. The header, please. Has some virtuals in there. So when it gets implemented, derive, implement these. All right, let's think. Okay, that's enough time to think. My brain didn't come up with anything. So let's say undefined reference, huh? We'll just Google it. You are declaring a virtual function without defining it. That's exactly it, isn't it? So in UI header, I can see I have a virtual function. I should be able to safely just put an empty function declaration in there. And then, did I look at my examples and mess that up? If I go to scene, Oh, it says equals 0. That might be better. Wow. If I had a quarter for every time I had to recompile. It compiled. Okay, so now that those things exist, if I run, literally nothing should be different, because the objects are defined but they're not used. So what we want to do now is back to the drawing board. This one. Fill out, maybe I'm going to put a check question mark. So now we should do this one. And maybe I was wrong about this amount, but I'm still scared of what this amount will be. So let's instantiate these and try to get them drawing on the screen and figure out exactly how much of a mess it is to use this kind of UI drawable class. And they're not exposed from Python yet. So I want to take menu scene. So menu scene is a really basic scene. Python scene is a huge mess. Let's not talk about it right now. Menu scene is a very approachable scene. So here's the header for it. What it really does is it has the scene base class, and it overrides the 3 necessary methods: update, do action, and render. And in the implementation, the constructor creates all the content on the scene, which just puts text on the screen. It sets the title, like it's not the title of the window, that's done by the game engine. It just sets the title of the top of the menu screen, makes the text a little bit bigger, and registers the keys, which are basically just the menu interactions. So the menu scene's real basic. Its only purpose right now is to be there when you start the game. You hit a key, it takes you to the Python scene. The way I want to do this eventually, hopefully by the end of this jam, is every scene will be an instance of Python scene, and they will load a different class that was, sought out of the scripts directory at startup time. So you make a new Python class that derives from the exposed scene class. That's not even worried about that until next week. But you'll be able to create these UI kind of things to make your menu. So clickable buttons, navigate with a keyboard. I'm working on the UI parts right now to reach that goal. But for this purpose, the real basic tests, what I'm going to do is duplicate menu scene as, so these, we'll just say perfect, that's the header. So all of these, I will have to change menu to UI test. Constructor, we only need the one text. Honestly, we don't need to register any keys at the moment. Update, there's no physics or game logic on a menu. If I want something to demo UI features in C++, that'll get added there. And this action can't occur because I unregistered the key that would invoke it. So for render, just only draw the basic text. The render cycle becomes trivial for this scene, which is clear the screen, draw one piece of text, and display. So I'll have to add here the UI elements we draw. And what I'll do is I'll change in game engine scene equals menu. We need to include our UI test scene .h. Again, this is all a pain because you got to rebuild it and recompile it, but the end goal will be new scenes are Python classes. You just add another Python class and you can define any display or grid-based behavior, UI-based behavior just from Python scripts. So where do we create those? Scene equals UI test, and now we just instantiate scenes UI test equals new UI test scene this. And I can tell you, if I sound like a genius right now, it's a bluff. I am basically copying behavior from around other places that I had to learn it more painstakingly, or just rip it off of YouTube. Okay, what does this say? No known conversion. Did I mess up a piece there? Was no matching function for UI test scene game engine. UI test scene H. That's why. The constructor had a wrong name on it. This is the kind of thing like a IDE ought to do automatically, but I'm stubborn and a Luddite. For some reason, I'm convinced I'm learning more doing it the hard way. Charlie says bet. I don't even remember what he was responding to. I'm very bad at reading chat. Sorry. This says UI test scene does not name a type. That's a little weird. Oh, I know why. Let's see. UI test scene. Wait, I don't know why. Oh, that'll do it. A couple more I missed. About to tell me I don't have some implementations once I get it to compile without that. So we are adding a new scene. It is almost ready. Come on. Every time you hit compile, there's a tension of, oh God, what semicolon did I forget? Okay, so now when I run it, we should get a new scene with no behavior whatsoever. It is a test scene for UI elements. The game engine is dropping us straight into that, bypassing the menu and not loading any of the Python behavior. So let's try to validate some of that UI stuff I made. So stuff we do one time, we'll set up in the constructor. So this will be like create a UI element or 3. In render, we will do draw all UI elements. And to do that, I want to make this as simple as possible. New things we'll add will be a vector of, where is it at? Check out Python scene. We got those vectors. I think I need the API. Include list. Gonna need that. And it'll be a vector of UI drawables. And for that reason, we'll also need to include UI.h. So now we have this. I'll call it UI elements. I'll think of a better name 5 times before that gets finalized. But we have this vector of UI elements. They're all UI drawable. But because the children classes all implement the virtual methods, I can call render on a UI element, and I don't know if it's a caption, a sprite, or a box. And if it's a box, I don't know what it contains. I'm just relying on the drawable element to handle all of that once I call render on it. So from UI test scene, what we want to do then is say for auto e in UI elements e.render, and the default render with no args should call render 00, which should be dispatched to that child class's behavior, which is different for all of them. And let me try to build that while I think about what's wrong with this. There's no elements in there. So it's compiling that. I'm going to start writing up some basic things. So what I want to do here is say auto t1 equals, I'll call it e1. Just have to rename at least one thing here. That would be a UI something or rather, one of these. Oh, that's why. I don't think I can do it that way. That's illegal. Here's what's illegal about it. You can't actually have a UI drawable. That's illegal. You can have a pointer to it, and then we'll figure out what it is. But you can't have an instance of a UI drawable. So let's make a frame, a caption, and not a sprite because I have to do some more work. I have to make sure those get loaded. So UI frame. I think that's it. And I'll probably have to do some stuff to these, but that should at least compile. And what I got to do here is after the constructor runs, I think these will go out of scope. That's why I've been doing stuff like this. And I know I should do something like standard shared vector or something like that. So, or a shared pointer. So you can just make a new element, save its pointer somewhere. Like I would have a list of all the pointers, and because they're shared pointers, they track them. But I would rather not Google things that are just obvious and learnable on stream. I'd rather try to prototype. So we will say UI frame and UI caption E1, E2, and what do I call it? UI elements, push back, pointer to E1, UI elements, push back, pointer to E2. And when we do this, it'll be E member by pointer render. I think I'm doing all that right. Let's let the compiler correct me. No point in me explaining it before I figure out how it's wrong. Has it been a whole hour? I should probably stretch. Wiggle a little. Okay. All right. What is it not like? Okay. Error. No match for operator star. Wait. Push. I don't remember how to do this. It's just called append in Python. What's the big deal? Why does everything have to have a different name? So let's go to mcrfpy and find a sound buffers. Push back B. That looks pretty normal to me. So I guess the only other thing I could think of is that oh yeah, you can't dereference it. I'm using the wrong symbol. That's how bad at pointers I am. So here should be address of or reference to. Let's see if that's and while it's compiling all over again, while I'm stretching, let's have a rousing discussion about justice. I have heard on more than one occasion since throwing together EngJam that some of these ideas are good ones, and I'm too old, too employed, and have too many kids with just one of them to do traditional game jams. So I have kind of embraced the chance to actually put my family on the schedule, take breaks, not really try to cram. It a little bit feels like I'm cramming because this is my third stream in 5 days. And I'm pretty busy all the other times, but being busy with the jam is, in my opinion, part of the self-improvement, part of the self-care of it is actually making the time to work on the stuff I want to do. But at the same time, I'm not staying up super late. I'm not skipping work. I'm taking some days off, but that's different. I'm not skipping class, except for one of them, which is only 25% of them. So I hope that can catch on a little bit, that people that want to make stuff, you don't have to clear your schedule or neglect yourself. I even took a shower today. It's a good time to be at a game jam and not have to basically act out crunch at the end of a video game's development before shipping. So don't do that to yourself. We don't need to crunch. Let's take a breather. Let's build for fun, but still show everybody what we're up to. And I have successfully compiled. Let's now see if I have a seg fault. Well, it didn't do any bad things. It just didn't show anything. So I think I can iterate on this a little bit more quickly now. Here's the idea: is these need to be configured to actually do something. So this is a UI frame and this is a caption. How do we assign stuff to them? So I would like we have e2.text. That's a SF text. So let's go have a look at that guy. SF text is a it is a container. Wow, this is another link to the old version. Up to date, please. Basically, we are going to set the string. It looks like it's a good old C++ string. So dot set string. And let's also set the color, because black on black is not super easy to read. And that would be a SF color. And for that, I have to give, I can't remember. It's been too long since the last time I worked on this. So let's say set color. uint alpha equals 255. Just trying to remember if it's 255 based or 1.0 based. Yeah. So this will be white, and I can also do a set position, right? Oh, and that's actually done. That one doesn't need to move at all, but let's just say like 50, 250. I don't know. So that might draw on the screen now. For the UI frame, this guy's got a box, which is a rectangle shape. And I think we can do like set position. I'll put that like 100, 150. And set color. Make them red. Time for some garish like MS-DOS QBasic looking interfaces. But now that we have moved and colored those two elements and nothing exploded on me when I tried to render them, let's see if there's actually just no content or not. That might just do it. All right, we are text set color is deprecated. Ah, look, boxes have more complicated color, so that's the thing I did wrong. Let's go with fill. I think they also have an outline, which is just simply groovy. And this says warning. Do I care? SFML deprecated. How do I usually do it? Let's text set color. Go to menu scene. I just want to see how I didn't set the color at all. Let's actually grep my code for that. This is literally the first time I've tried to set the color of any text anywhere, and it tells me it's deprecated. Okay, well, let's go with fill color for the rectangle. See if I can't get a red square on the screen. Okay, I don't see anything. Seems happy, but it's just not doing it. Oh, is there anything else I need to do? Render. That's the old guy. Element render and then display. Let's make this thing super laggy. And add just a couple of things. Draw text, that's working. And UI.cpp at the frame. Oh. And let's also include that in I want the same thing for caption, and what I expect to see is that render gets called, and then render with offset gets called for the two different classes. By the way, so it's not something dumb like I didn't save the files, right? Oh boy, that compilation time. I might have not loaded a font onto it. Let's double check that. So in menu scene, text.setFont. This should spam the heck out of us. Okay, rendering element, base UI drawable, caption with offset, UA frame with offset. Okay, so it is going through the right sequence there. It is rendering it. So when we call render, UI.cpp, we're rendering. We should get a window, assuming that I didn't segfault, so it's probably getting it. Text.move, window draw. I mean, if I'm only going to use it this one time, I could do something like this. It doesn't actually fix any problems, but if it's going to be broken, it could at least be pretty and broken, right? Love a good print line statement clogging up the thing, right? Okay, and text set. Get your standard out of my render function, and we'll try again. No, I can't just run it. I gotta wait like a year for it to compile. Okay. Where was I going with this? Where's my backlog? Nope, that's not the one. This guy. Let's take this time to think about if I'm doing the things I wanted to do. So, sprint 1 goals, which, by the way, Wednesday is pretty much halfway through sprint 1 in my schedule. Expose of single vector of drawables. Try to address these 1, 2, 3, 4 bugs. So okay, for that. Okay, we got text. Where's my rectangle? Oh, I already figured it out. It's got a size of 0. All right, getting close. This is a relaxing hobby. I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to do it. Well, that showed me nothing. So, let me look at how UI menu did it previously. UI menu. CPP, render. So by default, this one was a set size, set position, and set fill color. And blue was the default box color, wasn't it? So, I mean, I'm doing the exact same thing. What's occurring differently? So in UI, we have a frame. Moves by the offset, gets drawn, it moves back. My soda has been exhausted. I must switch to water for pondering juice. Okay, that all seems perfectly fine to me. Draw a box. Let's .640 by 480. Is it being drawn on screen? UI test scene. $250. Is it behind the text? That seems unlikely. Yeah, I don't know. Just double check that I saved it and do it again. My poor computer. What's going on here? Just cooking a bit. Nope, it's something I did. What have I done wrong? So, I mean, I should be able to cheat and say, oh, that may not necessarily help. I don't know why that would help. This is a cool thing I should be able to do with it, though. Render things at different positions multiply on the screen. There's no reason you should really need to do that, I don't think, but do I really need to set the color? Like, stop telling me that. Like, how am I actually supposed to do it if you can't say set color? Let's figure it out. Oh, okay, there's a fill color and outline color is why they're saying that. no matching function for set size. Did I just not save this properly? To the rectangle shape docs. Rectangle shape? That's in there. Oh, I need to wrap those in a vector is why it's mad. That's a little weird. Like, we really don't have set size, any other. Okay, get scale, set position. No, you have to, that's a little weird. You can set the position with the X and Y, but for the size, you have to build it into a vector. So I learned a thing. Now let's build a thing. And come to think of it, let's not put my shadow children in the render function. It's it would be very confusing. Am I closer to done with this? I would really like to spend, it's like 27 more minutes until I gotta resume human life maintenance. This says vector 2f. Yep, I didn't capitalize something, so. UI test scene, vector 2f. Oh yeah, this build script has got to get fixed. This is heartbreaking. I would really like for this to work so I can take a crack at exposing these classes to Python. Because what people may not remember is Sunday nights, I started off, obviously by doing a lot of just planning and scheduling, but hey, a box. Woohoo. Okay. Sunday night, I started off trying to wrap my existing UI menu class in for Python, and the result was that I really wanted something with no arguments, and because it required arguments to construct, Python couldn't just make one with no arguments to point to in memory. So it didn't work good. But now let's nest a bit. So how do I add some more things? And probably an important thing to figure out in the UI thing here. UI frame has children. This has probably got to be a vector as well, or a pointer as well. And yeah, because you can't put instances of UI drawables. You got to have pointers to diverse ones. And let's take a crack at a child box and make sure my nesting stuff is not gone insane. So to the test scene, this box can be a more modest, I think 400, 400. And I'm going to say E1A equals UI frame. E1AA equals UI frame. And E1A is going to be box dot set position. Let's go 50 comma 50, and E1A dot box dot set size vector 2f. 200, 200. So this will be like a little offset from the top left corner, but half the size. And E1 dot children dot push back E1A. Same sort of thing here, but I'm gonna make him 100, 100 and 5, 5, like very close to the corner. And all these colors need to be set, otherwise we won't be able to tell them apart. Oh, and these weird freaking names that I just made have to be again, I really don't want to have to define and recompile these, but again, it's just behavior test. And this should be to make sure that the boxes, like if we have E1, we're going to give it a child, E1A. We're going to give E1A a child, E1AA. That should be a box on top of a box on top of a box. And if that works, just by calling render, because the top level elements are just the top frame and the text, these children should render themselves automatically relative to each other, which means I don't want to see box E1A at 50-50 on the screen. I want to see it at 50-50 on the red box. So green box on top of red and blue box on top of green. Okay, and we get, yep, I updated the vector to hold pointers, but I did not update the render function to call by pointer. So now drawable should auto drawable children. I don't care if you copy a pointer. It's kind of exactly the same. But that should be the gist of it. Okay, booyah, nested boxes. So recursive rendering is working just fine, and suddenly I'm not feeling quite so bad about the schedule. So doodle boxes, I think I can now say done in C++. I can start on Python, I guess, but I really feel like I'm running out of time to actually accomplish that. But hey, the rendering is doing its thing. This, that's going well. The thing is that we need to expose these to Python, so I can write a Python script that does it. And also, I need to rebuild the button behavior, because now that we've got this, and I want to rebuild it better than UI menu, which is kind of a pain to use. Like there's a ton of code about figuring out which button was clicked inside the Python scene class. And what I really want to do is just say, oh, it's a mouse event, so where is the cursor? Is it in this box, this whole pile of boxes? Just call the handle event function and let the pile of boxes figure it out. Recursively, return false, whatever. that would be a lot better than the way it works now. Then also I want to make sure that gets built in a way that I can build a text box eventually, because right now there's no way to like type in a character name or something. If you don't render a key press for an event, then it doesn't become something you can do, and that's going to require changes to the whole event system from the game engine level down to every other thing that uses events. But yeah, let's take a crack at my Python formula. So for that, let's pull up in a very visibly different editor. Then maybe, yeah. And I'll go to the cross-platform concept. Basically, I made this proof of concept program to, in as minimal functionality as possible, implement the Python interpreter. So I'm embedding Python in my C++ game engine, and I'm able to call scripts, fill a string with Python code and execute it, all that kind of stuff. What I've just started doing, the real powerful stuff that this thing can do, is I can take a regular C++ class, just define some member functions, some variables, and through the use of these Python API structs, I can expose different behavior, saying like, hey, do you want to make a new object of type point? Then set x to 0 and y to 0. Bam, you've got yourself a new point cooking up. And have this little recipe of the different things that need to be built out to go from, and the size is a little ridiculous. Like the class itself is 5 or 6 lines. Then we got the new class, which, you know, a little bit of allocation, a little bit of code for every member. Then there's the init class. Sorry, struct, the init struct. And we got to let this thing come across as keywords, define those possible args, and then a boilerplate for every method that goes in. So I'm not going to be exposing render to the Python API. Something I probably should mention about my engine, I don't believe in running Python every frame. So there's never going to be an option to like call something every tick or every frame of graphics. Maybe every tick. That's probably fine, because game ticks might, you might be happy with 30 or 60 a second, but frames should be free to go up to like 180 or 240 FPS. And those frames should all be interpolating animations, like smoothly moving things across the screen without waiting for a response from Python on those calculations. So when I build animations, I'm passing all of the parameters from Python to C++. C++ is doing all the frame rendering. So anything that has to do every frame, like rendering a UI menu, can't be done with Python. I would say it's like a violation of my philosophy. So let's try to get my formula down again. And we'll start with the class. The classes are defined. Those menus are the thing I want to we got new. Still hadn't gone back and read what the difference between new and init is. A method, a structure of listing methods and a structure of listing members. And I don't think it's important for the Python version of these classes to like, it's really just not going to be important for them to be child classes of each other. I don't know, maybe that could be important. What does that say? Pynit point. Yeah, that's that initializes the whole module. This is all going inside the same shared module for the actual game API stuff. So I think that's probably enough, but so for UI, what I would like to do is, I don't need to do any of that. Like, I don't need the implementation to define this stuff. So what I'll put is in the header is what namespace do I want to put all my API definitions in? McRogueface pydef, I guess. MCRPY def, sure. And what needs to go in this, because we have points, it's going to be a couple of things like this. So let's just stick with the UI frame for now. So PyObject, Py UI frame new, type args keywords, and that's going to be, point to UI frame. So tpalloc is going to actually make one of them, and Python is now going to be aware of a Python object that on the Python side is a wow, I'm really falling asleep, huh? On the Python side, it's going to be a UI frame of that's the type we're defining right now. But on the C++ side, it's going to have a pointer to that base class. So what needs to be defined on a UI frame to do it? Pretty much nothing. Those will be perfectly fine how they are. Okay, so that's going to be a UI frame type object. Now let's build a init. UI frame init. Keywords will be, I mean, it kind of doesn't need any args when you init. Oh, this is kind of my chance to add a lot of them, but just see if I can get it to compile. Because this also might be where I need to do a whole other definition just like this for the rectangle shape, so that I can expose all of the size with all that stuff to Python. There is SFML Python bindings, but I don't think that they haven't been updated in like 7 years, is what the GitHub repo says. So I don't think I'll be able to successfully integrate them with my existing code. So I'll try to do that a little bit as needed to expose the stuff I actually use. Rectangle shape, text, and sprite, I think. Put a good old to do. So I don't think there's any methods on a UI frame that I need. Although I could put some here. This would probably be a good way to say PyUI frame and set size. So we have this self pointer, which is to the C++ objects. And now I can do anything I add to UI frame here, like mess with the children, get the size of the box, get any of those methods or values can go on here. So what I want to do for set size would be like dang it, this doesn't have args, so I gotta figure out how to do that. Yikes. And I know you have to give it something like set size would be like FF for 2 floats. And you also have to give it like something I messed up here. This, yeah, it's giving addresses for these guys. Okay, so if you can't parse that, return null. I think that's how it's usually done. Oh, -1 would probably be smarter there, wouldn't it? Good old sentinel value. So parse those tuples, and we'll say self box dot set size. I think I gotta do something like py incref py none. I need to double check this. I've done it a million times in this code base already. And that would be return py none. So something like that. Let's find it. Like, there you go. Py none. Why we have to do reference counting on none, I couldn't tell you. It's just not privileged enough to go without the standard treatment. Okay, so now we gotta put the methods def. PyUI frame methods, set size, PyUI frame, set size, var args, and okay. And that's a method struct, a members struct. Does this have any members that we can actually, because it's offsets, it does weird stuff. We still got a vector in there. I don't know. There's not really a good way to expose this, so maybe I'll go with none for right now. And finally the type. Rename. All right, what else does it say? Same here and here. Did I define new? I defined new. Okay. So the only thing that's left now is to throw it into the module, which in my case is in mcrfpy.cpp, and go to somewhere in this huge old file. Oh, I think I did it. I got ready for this, yeah. Nope, that's a menu. M equals, man. PyModule create. Okay. So what I would want to do is say py-incref reference to, and it'll be ui.h. PyUI frame type, I think, is the one. mcrf pydef PyUI frame type. Did I get that right? UI frame type. And I'll have to include all right, so let's try to add it. Otherwise, Go ahead and complain at me. All right, I think I need to wrap up the stream here. Yeah, that's gonna take some figuring out. So what's the dislike here? Okay, so the args has to go into pyarg parse tuple. Probably forgot a semicolon or something. Point was not declared, so I missed one of those. So there's homework. And what did I get done? That's the really thing I should sign off on. So these look really good. I'm gonna give this like orange smiley face for completion. So it's tested in C++. The recursive part works. I didn't test recursive other things on top of it. Also, what about sprites? So we got to get to those guys. But I, mostly just didn't want to set up loading textures and testing out of sprites. It's already pretty well tested as they are. I just didn't want to go through that stuff again to get the recursion tested out, which, by the way, worked on the first try. The recursion did not give me any issues at all. So the Python bindings are giving me trouble just because it's so much code to copy, paste, and change the names in. I will consider making a kind of template that I can copy, paste in Notepad, search, replace, and try to get something working for all these various classes a little bit more quickly. But it's novel for me. So that is the end of the stream. That is the end of the everything. Goodbye. That is the end of everything. Goodbye.